welcome to today's episode of Tea Talk. Now, I have to say, we're sans the tea today. We are drinking water, but it's because I feel like we're being extra authentic. We went out for tea right before this, and we've actually already been talking for like 4 hours straight.
We had our tea talk, but
Yeah.
the camera just wasn't there.
Yeah, this is like the water hydration post-tea talk that's your tea talk. So let me introduce you to the person sitting to my left and your right. This is a very good friend of mine, and this is Miss Tiffany, also known as Tifforelie on Instagram and
on the grams.
her blog and all over. And today we're actually doing tea talk a little bit differently because I first met Tiffany a little over a year ago, or it was almost exactly a year, huh? We were talking today, it's almost been exactly a year. And it's funny because when I went on this trip, I was really, really sick at the time, and I didn't want to go on the trip because of how sick I was. Like, I wanted to go and be there, and it was Aruba, and like the brand was amazing, but I was so sick I didn't want to go. And when I went on this trip, I ended up meeting Tiffany as well as another friend on the trip named Laura. All of the girls were amazing, but the three of us had so many like powerful conversations. And so when she texted me that she was coming out here, I was like, we have to sit down. We have to film a tea talk.
Yay!
So I'm so excited. And what I was saying in the meeting is I'm actually doing today differently because normally I talk and I have like questions and topics. It's like, today we're going to be talking about marriage. And then it's like people send questions. You guys know, you've seen this before. But today I wanted to really just talk with Tiffany for a couple of reasons. First off, her story and her life is so incredible and inspiring and has really moved and inspired me since I've met her. And two, on a total side note, Dan watches like every single Joe Rogan podcast that exists. And I've seen quite a few of them myself. And in these podcasts, he's just like talking to someone. It doesn't really, there's not really like a super formal structure. And I really like that and thought of doing that with you. I was just like, that's the way I want to do it. I didn't really know how this conversation was going to go because I just wanted to turn on a camera. One thing that we were talking about when we went out to tea talk. We did go out to tea talk. One thing we were talking about when we went out to tea was, I guess you would say, depression, if that's a way to put a word over it. I recently have been dealing with a lot of just sadness. I don't know if you can call it like depression, but a lot of sadness. And talking to you, I know your journey for the last year has been, since I just met you, has been incredible. But even prior to that year, I mean, we spent a good, hour and a half on the beach in Aruba, just like walking, talking about everything. Mm-hmm. So would you be down to kind of start, not from the beginning, but backing up to the previous, like where
like when we were getting to know each other in Aruba, the story that I was telling,
and a little bit of your life. Would you be down to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, where you from? Where you from, Tiffany? Take it away.
From Jersey. I grew up between New Jersey and New York.
I don't know if I knew you were from Jersey.
Yeah.
For some, I don't think I knew that. Okay, so you grew up in New Jersey.
Grew up in New Jersey. I just kind of, I was kind of on a conveyor belt of life. I felt like there were certain things I was supposed to accomplish by certain ages, and very immersed in that way of thinking.
And you grew up in the church a lot, right?
Grew up in the church. Very different. I was raised in a very charismatic church, and I went to a very conservative school. So there was like a lot of different doctrine things that were coming from different angles,
like
and
confliction.
I was conflicted for sure. And I was confused about my faith for a while, but
that's always an interesting place to be in as you start to grow up.
Oh yeah,
coming to terms with like what do I think,
and why do I believe what I'm claiming to believe, and why do I feel so uncomfortable about it sometimes? And so there was these questions, kind of faith and existentially, just wondering, who am I? What am I supposed to do? You were kind of in this place where you're questioning your faith. You're like, what am I even doing with my life? Totally, and it was backed up too by, I guess, just the baseline idea that I had about life was it's a series of accomplishments. And who defines those? I don't know. I just kind of adopted whatever was thrown my way. And in where I was living, it was, you graduate school, you go to college, and then you meet the person you're going to marry, you get married, you have kids, you buy a house. There was just this like roadmap. Yes, and I never really felt like I fit in to that. I remember sitting down with my guidance counselor as a senior in high school, and she's like, what are you going to major in? We need to figure out where you're going to school. And I was sitting in the chair like having my first waves of anxiety as like a young girl.
She didn't know that you were going to be Tifforelie one day. She didn't realize it. But go on.
No, I remember sitting there and like staring at the half can of Coke on her desk and like starting to hyperventilate. I don't really want to do anything on that list. Like I don't feel like it's because I'm lazy, because I love working, I love being productive and accomplishing things, but I just don't really fit, and I'm scared and help. I just don't get it.
That's such a scary feeling.
Yeah, and then I ended up leaving after high school. I didn't go to college right away. I just started working, and I loved creating things, but I just never, that didn't fit into that big roadmap of life that seemed to be set out for me already.
Yeah. Now, what were you doing for work when you put off college?
Oh gosh, everything. I was a pharmaceutical tech. I was a teller at a bank. I was a barista at Starbucks.
Yeah, so just odd jobs.
I did everything, odd jobs here and there, like they would last a few months, and then I would just be like, my boss is mean, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I'm over it. I mean, it had nothing to do with like the trajectory, especially of where you are now. So
and that's literally,
makes sense that wouldn't have fit.
Right, and it was just these creative things that I really loved, felt irresponsible to focus on because this just doesn't, this doesn't fit in to the game plan, the financial game plan, the whatever. And so I just kind of was confused and pursued around for a while, and then I had the stomach issues started kicking up. I didn't realize that I had a gluten intolerance, and it took me years to figure that out.
Can I, so the way that you were saying you feel also, or that you felt as a young woman, lady, when you were trying to figure out what to do when you were working these odd jobs, when you said this sentence that you felt like the creative things you liked, it didn't feel responsible to follow them, I feel like a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
And terrified. I mean, I can even relate, like even working the job that I have now, when I feel these creative draws towards, like sometimes stopping to play my piano in the middle of the day, it feels like I can't, and like that's irresponsible because that's not how I'm making my money right now. So I need to put my time into something that's earning me an income. It doesn't make sense fully to me, but it's interesting that we all...
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly how I was feeling. I just didn't, I felt like I had to qualify every interest that I was open about, and I couldn't qualify...
To the long-term picture.
Right, exactly. Like I couldn't qualify things like doodling, or, I couldn't qualify things like writing little stories, or, baking something. I just couldn't qualify it. And that's really sad for me to like say that now, because those were little passions that should never have been shoved down. And yes, there's ways to pursue those responsibly. If you have bills and you have like rent to pay, work a job, but don't, they're not mutually exclusive. You can't,
that's a good point.
You don't have to just work and then ignore the things you really love. You can do them both. You can work a job that maybe is not your passion, but then on the side pursue these other things. So anyway, like I was not at a place to really comprehend that on any kind of deep level, so I just shoved them down.
Honestly, it's like when you're in it, you're like, I don't know. I mean, half the stuff I do, it didn't even exist. I can't believe I do it now.
Yes. And who knows what it would have looked like at the time. I mean, people have been pursuing art and however you define it, and then sometimes it works out. But basically, over the next, like after high school, I did go to college for a little bit, but then my health issues started to get out of control. So I had to...
She's had a lot of stomach dietary issues.
Yeah.
On a side note, we were just talking about this earlier. I don't know if I knew this when we talked in Aruba. But do you, like, just digestive problems?
Yeah, like just excruciating
incredible stomach pains.
Right, and it went undiagnosed for a really long time, and in that time it was just a lot of guessing and medications that they wanted me to take, but I didn't want to do that because they didn't know.
Medication based off a guess.
Right, so I just kind of ended up falling into a job that I found that I could do from home that's kind of weird and a long story, but
it's the coolest story
crazy.
Too. I'm sitting here going like, how much can I pull out of Tiffany in this one little chatteroo?
Yeah.
Because you have the most interesting life. But go on, segue that however you want to.
All right. I won't go into the full detailed story, but basically there's a virtual world that I found because I was a big gamer growing up.
So cool.
Because my parents would design video games and...
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah.
So cool.
So the gaming was kind of in the picture for me for most of my life. And so I found this virtual world that you can actually create. It's called Second Life. and you can actually make money, like real money, creating things, like little outfits for people's little characters or homes or whatever. So if you learn 3D modeling, you can create these things and sell them to other players so that they can use them. And I ended up getting into this and falling completely in love with it because it was just sky's the limit with creativity, and I was making real money. I did that for 8 years.
It's so crazy.
Full time, which was crazy. It was awesome. Wow. But, you know, at the same time, there's this other story unfolding where I got married and I was still having this extreme pain, and whereas I had found a creative outlet, it was still kind of hidden. You know, it was online and it was behind this alias of a person, and I was kind of struggling with gaining the courage to still even create and share with the world anything that I was dreaming up. Yeah. But going through that pain and not knowing what was wrong with me, and then started having marriage problems, and over the course of 5 years, I ended up having a miscarriage and a divorce, and finally, eventually, just was driven to the point of, okay, I cannot just be a victim anymore. Like, I cannot just sit around and let this pain and let this fear of sharing what I love hold me back, because it just kind of landed me in a situation where I was hurting and I felt alone and suffocated. And what happened was, it just gave me this, it like lit a flame under me. It was like, at this point, you don't have control. You realize that, you know, you can't control the fact that your marriage ended. You can't control the fact that you had a miscarriage. You seemingly can't control this pain. So what are you afraid of then, you know, that's going to keep you in this place? Yeah. And I ended up feeling like I have no reason to hold back anymore. So I actually ended up figuring out that it was dietary elimination diet. 3 months later, I was feeling amazing. So I didn't have to stay in my house and do that design. As much as I loved it, I love people. Like, I love being around people. So I was
in 8 years of just working from home, like, I mean, I'm figuring out ways now to try to work with other people more, because being at home, especially when you're a people person, all the time, it just gets hard sometimes.
Oh gosh, like I would go a couple days, just like computer stuff for a couple days, and then I would go to the grocery store, literally like twitching. Yeah. Like, I get to the cash register.
You're like way too friendly to the person checking you out. I'm like, how you doing today? God, what's happening with you? How's your kids? What's going on? You just literally get too friendly.
Yeah. So I'm like, I need to ease into this. I need to be around more people. Yeah. And so
in the course of that 8 marriage, sorry, can I back? So the course of those 8 years, you started that job, you started doing that because you were able to do it from home, regardless of your pain, regardless of, you didn't have to like call out of work because you were self-employed, which was also a big thing, side note for me with YouTube, was yes, I love it, but I also really do so I relate to that, not having to call out if you're down for the count. Yeah. So in that 8 years, you got married, you had a miscarriage, and you healed your stomach-ish, I know, basically. And then towards the end of that 8-year period, was that the same time that you ended up getting a divorce? Was it the same?
It was.
Did it all kind of come to end at the same time?
Yes. So it was really the catalyst for me, I think, was the divorce. I was just like, I never thought that I would go through this. I never, you know, and there was a part of me that, because of my, I guess, lack of experience and like losing things or having it shoved in my face how not in control I am, I had this kind of judgment of like, that I didn't even realize. Like before that, I would judge people who were going through things. Yeah. And like what I was sharing earlier, like I would maybe even feel pity for people who are going through things. Like I didn't know how to respect the beauty of trial. Like I didn't understand that yet. Yeah. And so when I was going through the divorce, it was just kind of this first time that I felt like no more victim for me. Like this is my life. Like there is so much beauty ahead. There is so much creativity ahead, relationship, friendship. I need to be open to that reality. Otherwise, I'm just going to lay around and simmer in this mess. Yeah. And that just feels like the least responsible thing I could do with life. Yeah. You know? So that gave me the courage to start. I was like, okay, I'm going to dig up those things that I've hidden for so long. I'm going to stop being afraid to write things, and I'm going to stop being afraid to take pictures and, you know, paint things and, just bake
I didn't know you
things.
painted.
I love painting.
That's
and
so cool.
That was honestly such a strange little baby thing that I didn't realize was holding me back was people don't know me as a painter. They're going to laugh at me if I start painting. People don't know me as a baker. They're going to point and laugh if I start baking.
That's how I felt when I started doing music,
music.
except people did point laugh. I looked at the camera, I'm like, some of you pointed and laughed. No, but everybody's allowed to point and laugh sometimes, whatever.
Literally, but yes, and that's totally, if you want to do that, you can, but
and art's relative, but yes.
Right. And
I felt like I had to take that back after scolding the camera.
No.
Some of you pointed and laughed, but go on.
But I mean, it happens and it's true, and what I had learned was, if people do point and laugh, that they can do that. They're free to do that. Fine. But that shouldn't stop me from uncovering these things and looking at them and saying, you know what? The fact that this gives me joy means that it's precious, and it means that it deserves to be out in the light and breathing and being shared. And
I love that perspective, that because it brings you joy, it deserves to be out in the open. And be shared. That's such a beautiful thought.
And I found that, I was blocking myself off from the world because I was hiding those things. Once I started letting them out, it's like I'm letting people see me, who I really am. And if you don't like it, that's okay. I'm not going to be like, what you see is what you get and be rude about it. But if this is me and I'm sharing my joy, you can like it or not, and what I've seen, the result of that is it has brought me friendships, and that was the thing that Instagram was the platform I chose to start sharing the things I loved on, and it was a combination of photography, styling, fashion, adventure, stuff like that.
Her Instagram is so cool. Sorry to go on a side tangent really quickly, and then we'll dive back in. If you haven't checked out our Instagram by this point in the video, go check it out. When I went to Aruba, I didn't know who anyone was, and it turned out that my sister was a mega fan of you and Laura, both of you. She was like, I follow them both, and I actually found out today, I think my sister literally got the same tattoo, so I was like, oh, well then there's...
Which I love. That is the sweetest.
It's so funny. So she's just every Pinterest goal you could imagine.
Oh, so sweet.
Combined with, not that Pinterest isn't deep, but combined with the depth. I like your writing too. I like what you bring to your posts.
Thank you.
So Instagram's the platform
that I chose to share on.
Yeah. And I will say one other thing.
Yes.
When we met in Aruba and I came back, I told Dan that you also, I can't say that I was walking around actively judging people who had gotten divorced, because I know there are so many circumstances that happen, but for some reason, hearing when we talked about that and hearing your experience and just how life just happens sometimes, and you just don't know what people are going to do, the decisions they're going to make. Sometimes they just have nothing to do with you. A lot of times, actually 98%, I'm realizing I have no control. Other people do what they want to do, and you made me realize that in a whole different level and peel back. Apparently I did have judgment there that I didn't even realize, and you just made me see that differently. So I agree with you about when you said you felt like you realized, oh, the judgment I was judging. Yeah. That's how I felt when I came back after meeting you. And everybody was like, wow, I really need to stop. I have judgment where I didn't realize I had judgment.
It's hard, and everybody does. So it's and I can't judge someone for having judgment
either. Yeah, that's a great point.
There's just certain things that a switch flips, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that I was seeing it that way or feeling that way.
It's very humbling.
Yes, and for me, it was going through it was that thing that made me realize, oh man, this is not as black and white as I thought. And at that point, having that event in my life, plus the previous events of the miscarriage and then just the health stuff and everything, I was just like, okay, this is giving me the courage to say, you know what, can't control it anyway. I'm gonna just make the most of what I have, and what I know that I have are these things that give me joy, and these little things that are beautiful, and there's things that I want for my future that I haven't had yet, really great friendships and adventures where I'm not scared the whole time, and there's things that I want, and I'm like, maybe that can happen if I would just stop hiding all the time. And so Instagram I started sharing on, and I didn't expect it to pick up. It was just kind of an exercise for me. Wow. I'm going to put this out there. And I remember specifically choosing Instagram because my family couldn't see it. Because I was still too afraid to put.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to put it on Facebook because I didn't want my family reading all these things and judging me.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not to say that my family's like judging me, but
100. I didn't tell anyone about my YouTube channel for like months because I get what you mean.
Yes.
It's very vulnerable.
It is very
especially
vulnerable.
back in the day when we started. Can I just say that like it's less. I mean, not to, if you're feeling nervous, it's not to like slam anyone's nerves.
Yeah.
But I do feel like also back then it was even more like, what are you doing? Like, what are you posting? Talking to yourself, crazy pants?
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's why it was Instagram. And then I, because of the way that the divorce was happening, I felt, you know, like I just wanted community. Like I wanted to find something where I felt like I belonged, like where my story fit. And I met this girl on Instagram who she was posting things that were really revealing some hardship that she was going through, but she didn't go into too much detail. But I felt so strongly that it was the same thing that I emailed her, and she was like, "Yep, come visit me." And I went down to Nashville, and I was introduced to this community of women and people who were just creative and joyful, and they weren't bitter about their past, and they weren't there were women who were going through divorce, and they didn't want to talk bad about their exes. They just wanted to gather, and they wanted to create things, and they wanted to share their hearts, and they were genuinely welcoming to me. And that was so healing for me, and it was the first time. So then it was this combination of learning to share and seeing how that attracts, you know, when you're willing to be open and tell your story without fear, it will attract other people who are doing the same thing, and then the beautiful friendships grow out of that. Like I've never had friends as sweet as the ones that I have now, like ever since, and they do the same. Like they don't hide. They don't hide their scars. They don't hide from their past. They don't hide the things that they love, the things that that hurt them. You know, it's not just about being happy for Instagram and the camera all the time. It's not at all. You know, like if I style something and take a picture of it, I'm not trying to convince people that something's happening that's not happening. I styled it because it gave me joy. I photographed it because that gave me joy, and I'm going to write whatever was happening at the time, you know, and that's the community that I really fell into. So,
and you've been saying that, like, since I met you last year, you were just like, these people are incredible. So it's just cool that it wasn't a flash in the pan.
No, it was real, and that's why it was real. It wasn't an excitement. It wasn't some superficial, oh, there's something I can get from you, or you know, it wasn't anything. We wanted to do life, and we wanted to do it better than we had before, and we were all like, all right, let's do it together.
So cool.
It was amazing and beautiful. And then not long after that, maybe a year later, I was going to Nashville a lot and eventually moved there, but I met a guy who was adventurous and amazing and awesome, and we started working together and dating, and we did everything together. He was a filmmaker, and we would travel, and just we got deep into a relationship with each other. We had some really hard things that we walked through, but you know, he was just really inspiring and beautiful. And he, a year and a half later, which is this past May, like last May, passed away in a motorcycle accident. And I, you know, the things that I had been through up until that point, nothing could ever prepare you for losing someone like that. It turned everything upside down for me. I had been living in Nashville at that point for 3 years, or visiting down for like a year and then living there solid maybe 2 years. But everything turned upside down. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. It was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. And the first thing that happened right away, that day that I got that news, those friends showed up for me, and I couldn't function. I just couldn't, you know, I couldn't be there for them. I couldn't even make them. I mean, like, I love hosting. It's like one of my favorite things in the world. I couldn't do anything for anyone. And they didn't expect it of me. But what I watched happen was this community of people lifted me up when I couldn't even feel it or realize it. And it gave me the courage, again, like more courage, like less fear, more courage seems to be the theme. It's like to start getting up and to start hoping again, and to start, because like loss, it's like losing a baby, losing a husband, losing someone you're in love with tragically. There's this tape playing of like loss, pain, like that could end so hopelessly. But having that community around me gave me the courage to say, okay, yes, that's an option. I could look at all the ways that I've lost, and I could expect more of that, and then run into more of that.
It's hard to not expect more of it.
Of course.
When you've only had one experience,
yes,
I feel like that's the same of people who date and get cheated on, or people. I feel like any situation you've had, if that's all you've experienced, it's hard to not assume that's just going to happen again.
Absolutely.
It takes strength for you to do that.
It takes strength. It takes courage. And it takes... But the thing is, like, if I'm the only one reading the script of my life, if I'm the only ones telling the story, then it's just going to look like, oh, wow, this is probably what you're destined to go through for the rest of your life. But when you have community, you have other people looking at you and saying, I don't see that for you.
I love that.
I actually see really beautiful things for you. I actually see you strong and healthy. I see someone who really, really loves you and who is not going to die,
Yeah.
Like,
people can speak against those lies.
Absolutely.
Because they're lies.
Yes, they are. They're not there. And yes, it's what I've experienced, but we do have the ability to change the script.
Yes.
We really do.
And why does it mean that's what you're going to experience over and over? My therapist has said that to me a few times, that it is not what you're going to experience over and over if you don't want it to be what you have experienced. But go on.
And I mean, that's what because of those friendships that grew back when I was going through the divorce, those friendships continued to bloom, and they came up for me, and just, I mean, it was an ugly time for me. Like I was a zombie. I could not sleep. I was up all night sobbing, and I had friends that were there, like, rubbing my back. The girl Ruthie, who first invited me down to Nashville, literally lived with me in my bed, and she has chronic pain because of an injury that she suffered, and she, so it's hard for her.
So sleeping in someone else's bed is an ordeal. To those of you that don't have.
She was like, this is a no-brainer. I am going to be there for you.
Wow.
And the thing is, like, when people hear this story of these friendships, and, it's like, wow, I wish I had that. And I felt the same way. And I'm telling you, like, if you open yourself up, it comes. Wow. Like, that comes. It happens. It just does. Like, they like magnets,
So that's so encouraging, I think, for anyone, because I feel like probably everyone has felt at some point in their life, like, am I going to have those kind of friendships? Do those people exist? Do I deserve that kind of friendship? Or even, so I was at Bible study last night, and I was telling, we were talking about compassion, and they asked, one of the questions they asked is, when is someone shown you compassion that really struck you? And from going through this period of time recently of being just, like, sad and dealing with all of that, which is a whole separate thing that I am going to tell you guys about at some point. I'm just processing through its stuff, my injury stuff, and just things going along with that. And so going through all of that with friends, I have one friend who has just been so compassionate towards me during all of this, and has really seen me and heard me and spoken to me when I've been breaking down. And I brought that up in group. I was like, her compassion that she showed me while going through all of this just meant so much. I actually, as I'm saying this, I don't really remember what the point was, other than that person has been extremely compassionate.
Well, that's I mean, that's exactly what it is.
It's just the compassion is like
it changes things.
It changes things.
Yeah.
And I think I'm remembering the point. I hate when the point goes away and you're like, I'm telling a story, but there was definitely a moral of the story and it's gone. She showed me compassion. I feel like, one, I kind of had forgotten that I could be that, like, broken and sad and have someone still not only like me, but say it's okay. Like, her telling me, I know that sometimes people go through depressive episodes for like weeks, months. And I just remember hearing her say that, thinking, okay, I don't want that for myself, and I hope that's not what happens. But the fact that this person acknowledged that, to me, is them showing me, hey, I know this could take a long time, and I'm here. Like, I'm aware that this could be a while. And it was a very, it's been very encouraging. I still don't remember the real point I brought it up, but it's encouraging. Yeah. And I'll just interrupt you again if I remember. Wait, Tiffany, I remember.
Well, so, it was totally relevant. Like,
yeah.
It was. That's exactly what community is supposed to do. Yeah. Is when you're, like if I was going to try to go it alone, I'm telling you, I would have. The no eating, no sleeping thing would have continued much longer. Yeah. I wouldn't have been working. I mean, there was a couple of contracts that Capel and I were in the middle of when the accident happened, and I remember just a couple weeks after he passed away, I had to talk to those companies, and I had to say, here's what happened. I don't know what to tell you. And the community that I had came through in such a way that there was this big job in Europe that me and Capel were supposed to do. And we were going to make this video, and it was going to be about how as much as social media and photography and film can paint a picture of what an experience is like, you have to go. You have to be there. You have to actually experience it yourself. So this was the concept, and we were so excited about it. We were going to go make this video on this trip with Celebrity Cruises. It was really awesome. And then this happened, and I had to tell the team, he's gone, and I don't know what to do. And I was expecting them to just kind of release me from the contract. Yeah. Which they did offer. But they also said, if you still want to do this, we still want you to do this. And this gave me, like, the moment of hearing that they would, still want this to happen, it just kind of shocked me. Yeah. And I was like, well, clearly I can't do that. Like, clearly. And then I talked to a few people about it, and they were like, why not? We would completely understand if you didn't. Yeah. But imagine if you didn't. How would you feel? Like, I remember them asking me that, and I was just kind of staring off, and I was picturing myself just kind of staying at home and grieving, and that would have been fine. It would have been totally fine if I did that.
I like what you said earlier, by the way, not to derail you, when you said that you knew neither decision was wrong.
No, there wasn't a wrong choice.
That you could have stayed home.
I could have stayed home. It would have been fine. It would have been totally fine. But the look on my face when I was trailing off and just like thinking about it, they were like, there's your answer. I wanted to do the more difficult thing. Like, that was such a huge turning point for me. And how do you find that desire inside yourself? I couldn't take credit. Yeah. I had so much support. Like, I had so many people telling me that it would be okay, and that I would be okay, and that this was going to hurt, and it was going to be hard and gruesome, but that was not it for me. That was not it for me. And that support, the support from the community around me saying, you can hurt and you can live at the same time.
That's a tweet. Yeah. You can hurt and you can live at the same time.
Fully live. And so that was like the first little crossroads where both options, totally fine, stay home or go and do the job. But I said, I think I want to go do this job. And I got my friend Shoni. I remember walking up to her in my kitchen because my house was full of people. Like, they would not leave, and it was the most beautiful thing. And I walked up to Shoni and I was like, do you want to go make a video in Europe with me? And she's like, okay, we don't really make videos.
We don't know what we're doing, but we can figure it out.
I mean, I know we don't make videos, but maybe we could learn. She's like, when is the trip? And I'm like, 2 weeks.
It's so amazing.
She's like, we'll do it. Let's do it.
Just amazing.
So we got on the phone with the team, and they were like, okay, and we did it, and it was that was not the end of, the pain story for me. I had to walk through so much grieving on that trip, and I had to go through, and then even past that, like getting back home, there's just layers and layers, and grieving is such a process, but it has been it has been pure growth for me. Like, I can't, I break down sometimes, and that's okay. And I laugh really hard, and that's okay. And I've, started to date again, and that's okay. And I'm still open to finding that person, and that's okay. And it's, all of it together is okay. And the whole process has taught me that community, beautiful and necessary, but in order to find community, you can't hide yourself.
Yeah.
And then once you find that, no matter what happens, whether it's pain or success or whatever, it all exists together as life.
Yeah.
And if you make that choice to keep yourself open, to love well, to receive love from beautiful community, it will always end up good. It'll always end up in a good place.
Wow.
And good doesn't mean without pain.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean without pain. It doesn't mean without hardship. Good means joy. It means I know this is going to be all right. It's going to be all right.
You saying that you can live and feel pain all at the same time, I think that's a big, I would imagine that everybody has felt that to some degree, and I know that with the things that I've been dealing with the chronic pain, I feel like I've been, like, I struggle with hiding, with pulling myself back. I'm like, I can't do that. And it's a sticky, like what you said, there is no right or wrong. So it's a sticky, it's hard to make decisions sometimes, or even know when you're hiding, because sometimes you get used to thinking, I'm just trying to be strong. I'm trying to be strong and I don't want to dump on people. And did you ever feel in the process like I'm dumping, or like they don't want to hear me talk about this
constantly.
anymore, or like I shouldn't say it anymore?
Oh, absolutely.
And how did you like measure that or ride that out, or what was that like?
I told them. I was honest.
I
Honestly, I feel afraid that what I'm going through is so heavy. I don't want to become a life-sucking situation in your life. And the friends that I had knew, like they were like, no, this is not too much. We know that this is temporary. We know that this grieving is just going to grow you into some other beautiful season that we want to be there for. Yeah. We want to be there for you now. We want to be there for you then. We want to, so it's really, it's the right people, because when you're going through something, if you're surrounded by unhealthy people who do not understand how to carry their own pain, they're not going to understand how to carry your pain, and they could invalidate you and make you feel like you're too much, or that it's, this is too much. You're too much drama, too much this and that. But if you in your heart, you're humble and you're open and you're self-aware and you're,
maybe that's what it is, the self-awareness.
You need to be aware of what it, that's why I believe so much in therapy, because it's a really helpful guide. It's a really helpful guide to self-awareness. Yeah. Because sometimes you genuinely won't know, but if you're talking to someone who understands these things, like the way that emotions and the mind and all these things work, they can help guide you in a really beautiful direction. So that has been a beautiful thing in my life too. Yeah, because that's whether that's part of the problem and I'm just too judgmental, but I have experienced people before. I mean, if I'm being honest, really it was a long time ago, so maybe it's a very old thought around like one person, but I have experienced people before where like I'm around them and I'm just like, oh my gosh, and so I get afraid of being that to other people almost every time I start talking about pain. But maybe, like you were saying, it's the right people combined with self-awareness of when you have crossed that, or I don't even know what I'm trying to say, and but I totally get what you're saying, and I have felt that way before too, and I think that there's a less, maybe a not very complicated way to look at it, and I think that is your own expectations for your life. If they're positive, you will walk in that direction, and the spirit that you carry around people will be much more positive and light, where even no matter what you're going through. Wow. But if your expectations are negative and you're still in that victim, the expectations for how things are going to pan out, things are going like I'm always this, right? Or, if you gotcha. I mean, even if you just think about it in a professional, in professional terms, like a person who goes into a meeting and all they can think about is all the other jobs that they haven't gotten and all the times they've been fired and all the this and that. They're going to go into an interview and they're going to be like, it's probably either going to work out anyway, but like how likely are they to get fired? Whereas like a person who has past failures and they're just like, but I really want to stay positive and I really want to like believe in what I can do. I want to believe in what I can accomplish in this. They're going to walk into an interview and they're going to blow the person away.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very positive experience. I think it's the same with friendship, like and relationship. If you're looking at all your failures and losses and you're just carrying that around and saying, this is what, it's just going to be more of the same, you know, you're going to drag people down.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you find the beauty that you can pull from those experiences and say, you know what, this was terrible. It was painful. I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't, but I learned something.
Yeah.
And that is going to make me a better person. It's going to make me a better friend. It's going to make me more compassionate. You can, there are so many beautiful things that you can pull from any situation in life. And if you have that positive mindset, you're not going to accidentally weigh someone down.
That is really interesting. And I think sometimes when you're, those are hard. Maybe I'm being too negative. I feel like those can be hard thoughts to hold at the same time. Being sad and grieving while also maintaining a positive assumption of your future. You know what I mean? And not falling.
Totally.
It's hard to I would imagine it's hard to grieve and hold that at the same time.
That was the biggest lesson that I had to learn when I was going through those first few months of like excruciating pain. It was identifying the pain and identifying the role that it played, because I guess what everyone basically would assume, and rightly so, is like, I would like to avoid pain at all costs. And anyone in life, I would like to avoid pain.
Yeah. I don't
want to hurt.
Yeah.
And who wants to hurt? Like nobody. So when something painful happens, we almost feel like we need to surrender to it, let it do its thing, let it pass. And it's very hard to stay positive if we give pain that power. But if we see pain as part of life, not something to be afraid of, not something to hide from, something that we can allow to come in and help mold us and shape us, then all of a sudden it's not sadness or positivity. It's not, because the sadness is coming from the fact that you're experiencing pain.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, so what it felt like was, okay, so if beautiful things are going to come from this pain, just like you work out really hard and you're sore and you know that it's going to give you strength. Yeah. Looking at it that way, it's like, okay, yes, I'm feeling pain right now, but I know that it's growing something in me that will survive. And so all of a sudden it's much easier to say, I can walk out of this positive. I can actually feel and possess joy in this moment, even though it really hurts and I have to cry really hard. And I don't know when I'm going to stop crying. I don't know. But I do know that I will. And when I do, this will have grown something in me that I will, that is gold. Yeah.
And not, like you just said, knowing that it will end.
Yes.
I think that's
fear that it won't end. It's fear.
Yes, it's fear. And like this week, I was talking to my therapist about everything that was going down, and she was saying to me, she's like, I don't like that you make things sound like that's it. And I'm like, oh, I realize I'm not making it sound that way. I feel that way at this point right now. But she brought that to my attention. My friend that I was talking to brought that to my attention. And this has all been over a couple of days. You saying that, and you're right. I think there's an amount of like, I don't even know what I'm trying, surrendering to the hopelessness, or like feeling like
you lost. Like,
I
okay,
lost.
Pain
This
won
is
this
it.
time.
Yeah.
I wave the white flag until the pain's gone. But pain.
And then you wonder if it's ever going to go away.
Right.
So then it comes down to what you were saying of like, well, am I just going to be sad with this pain? Like, what if this is my life and I'm always hurting? Am I going to sit in it? Or like you said, am I going to live with it?
Right.
And it's still kind of scary, the thought of living with it. Why
scary.
does it feel scary, though, still to live with it?
I think it's because of our definition of pain. I think it's because we see it as a failure to feel pain. Like, we see pain as the thing that needs to be avoided.
Yeah. That totally makes sense.
If pain is the thing to avoid, when you're feeling it, you feel like you failed. You feel like, well, now what? Now I'm losing. Now I'm helpless and I'm hopeless in this situation because I can't make the pain go away. I couldn't speed up the grieving process.
I just can't.
Literally. So I could have just like blanked out this whole experience and been like, pain, okay, have to sweep this one under the rug, just cringe until it's over.
Yeah.
But, and this is another beautiful thing that I've learned from my friends who do live with chronic pain, that the doctors are basically saying, you know, this isn't going to go away. This is actually going to get worse for the rest of your life. They are learning this as well in a much more tangible way of, you know, pain is going to be with me for the rest of my life. It is. And I can still be alive, and I can still access joy, and even more deeply, because I've learned how to not be afraid of pain. Like, not be afraid of it. I don't know that it's the pain that necessarily bothers us as much as the fear.
You know? Or even what you were saying, like the expectations and feeling like you failed.
Right.
I know, like for me, I've tied pain to making me feel like I want to or need to stop.
Feeling
also
limited.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Also, there is. I mean, on a side note with pain, I keep looking at the camera, by the way, so I'll make sure this doesn't stop recording. I keep like pain, physical pain. I was having this conversation with Dan today. There's also this line, I feel like, that's hard to figure out sometimes with when you're being irresponsible, if that makes sense. Like, there's this part of me, it's like, well, fine, I'm just going to live with the pain and go live my life and just, I'm going to go out dancing and whatever. But then, and I was watching a video about someone saying this, that they do that, and then they just know, okay, I'm just going to be dealing with the repercussions for the next few days, which was my, like in high school when I was homeschooled, but I didn't want to miss out on school dances, and I had friends at all the different high schools, so I went to like 4 proms, like 3 winter formals. It was amazing, but I was in so much pain for like the week after the dances, and I remember it was so frustrating watching my friends just go to a school dance and then get up the next day and kind of go back to life. And for me, it was like, oh man, I'm like trying to hobble out of the house at the person's house I slept over at. And then where my head goes with expectations is like, how much of that was me being irresponsible because I should have, like, is that too much writing off? Well, there'll never be a solution, so I better just go live my life, when it's like, but what if there is a solution, and if I was just a little more responsible with how I divvied up my time, there actually is a real tangible light at the end of the tunnel. And so figuring out when I'm hiding versus when I'm trying to be responsible and take care of myself, and when the two are appropriate is really hard to figure out. I don't even know, that's just...
Well, totally. I think that's really valid, and it's, you know, not being afraid of pain doesn't mean pretending it's not there. Like, it doesn't mean ignoring it. It will change you. It'll change your life. But you get to choose if it changes for the better or for the worse. That's where you get to choose. So it's like the fact that you maybe have certain limitations that other people don't, that could either be a really debilitating and discouraging thing, or it can be something really beautiful, where, I mean, just off the top of my head, like, I would give anything to have Capel back, you know, alive. That can't happen. I have to accept that. I can't ignore that. But I do feel like sweet, precious human beings who have lost somebody, I can look at them and understand them now. I couldn't before. You know, like, there is a really deeply beautiful thing that connects us in our pain. You know, you've experienced, you having pain like you've had for so long, and, you know, feeling like it couldn't be shared or it was too much for other people. There are so many people out there who have the same, not maybe the same pain, but who have the same fear of, you know, but you understand them. Like, you can love them well because of that. And, like, so that's just one tiny example of a beautiful thing that would only exist if you had pain.
Yeah, that's a really good, and I think what you said about it coming back to community, I think that, did my door open? No, I think it's good. Oh, we shut that door. Yeah, you saying it coming back to community connection, I think that, I think you're totally right. I think it's so beautiful to hear your story, because, man, it's just encouraging. Like, and going through my own thing right now, it's just, I am already seeing similar, like, glimmers of, like, hope, and it feels kind of scary, and just the concept of living through pain, like, that you can live and experience the pain.
Oh my gosh, yes. And life, like, this is what it comes down to for me, life, creating and connecting. There is no amount of pain that can stop you from creating or connecting.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, if you can't take those things from me, you can't take anything from me. Like, everything that I go through will only add to that adventure.
That's such a good point.
Creating and connecting. Like, what the hardships I've been through give me a greater ability to create and to connect. Same as yours.
Yeah.
Same as your pain. Same as my friends with chronic pain and others who have lost someone or who are going through something like a breakup or, things that just feel so bad that you're tempted to just surrender to it. But it's all building. It could build this really beautiful thing if we just leave ourselves open, expect good things to come and share the things that we're passionate about with each other.
Yeah. You said the same thing too earlier that my friend said to me last night about how going through this, you see like a beautiful ending to it, and not an ending, but you see them coming out the other side when you meet someone who's dealing with a lot of pain. I feel like I sound like a school teacher. Like, could you repeat that for us, Tiffany? Like, because it just your perspective on just what you see. I mean, maybe I literally just said it.
No, well, basically,
you're like basically that's it.
Basically that. But just that the way that I would see people before, who were going through something hard. I would look at these people going through hard things, and I would be like, oh, you poor thing, like condescending. Like I didn't even realize that it was condescending. I thought it was being caring.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel sorry for you. Like I didn't realize. But what I was doing was kind of like, oh man, thank God that's not me.
You're
kind
here.
of like that. Then when I started going through these things, I was like, oh my God, like so much beauty has come from this. And now when I see somebody in the midst of pain, I am not looking at them and pitying them. I'm looking at them and I'm feeling like so much anticipation for what they're about to see.
Yeah.
If they choose to see it.
Yeah.
The beauty that comes, I'm like, oh, I am almost jealous of you, because this dark time that you're walking through right now, it is building something so stunning inside of you, and it's going to change your life, it's going to change your world, and it's going to be amazing,
Well, what I like what you said, also kind of in combination with, you said the exact same thing, slightly, almost opposite too at the same time. You both said that, but my friend also said, I guess that God loves to surprise people, and that there's kind of two things here. You could end up living with the pain, and you can live, like you just said, and still experience life and live beautifully. There's also this other side of, you also don't know if it's going to change. And when the way she painted it to me, I also thought like, man, it's a really good point. Like I have had other things in my life that I thought were never going to change, and they did change. And so, I mean, it's kind of scary to have hope when you're hurting, but it's kind of like hope for, man, this could change.
Absolutely.
And God he really does. I feel like I've been surprised by God so many times.
Yes.
So there's also that potential too, that things could totally flip.
They could.
And
the joy comes in being okay with
either one. That's the
whether
point.
It does or doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be incredible.
Yes.
Like, not just fine. Like, I'm going to be incredible.
Yes.
And yeah, there's no fear.
Wow. Well, dude, Tiffany, I mean, I feel like that's a perfect way to end this, is on no fear. And you just meant a lot to me. Everything we talked about earlier at the coffee shop, everything they got to hear now, it just means so much to me, and I'm really excited to see.
Wanting.
Oh my gosh!
Like, this is amazing.
I literally told Dan after I messaged you and was like, "Do you want to do this?" And you were like, "Yes." I was like, "Yes!" Everyone on Tea Talk is gonna love this, because literally, you just have so much. You're just so wise, and I just appreciate you sharing that with everyone. And I know that everyone will be so appreciative of you sharing your story. So thank you so much. I just really appreciate it.
Guys, I have a secret.
What? What's the secret?
She's one of the first YouTubers I ever followed.
Really?
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Now you know.
Now
one
you know.
of the first ones.
I felt pretty special. Why was the only YouTuber on that trip? Did it come? So it came from that trip, I'm assuming, because you met me and you started following me. Like,
no.
You followed me before that?
Yes.
I don't know if I knew that.
Like years ago.
Wait, what?
I thought I told you on the trip.
Okay, no, I will. To be fair to you, Dan was literally just telling me last night that my memory is so bad. Sometimes it's creepy. Like he was like, we had a whole conversation.
I actually didn't know if I told you that.
Okay, so maybe you didn't. Wow, that's so funny.
So you know, so now you understand the depth of the honor that I feel.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I did not know that. Go check out Tiffany because this really, everything you saw from her today really is the tip of the iceberg. And I don't like that saying. Actually, I do like that saying, but I really mean that saying in the fullness of the word. The fact that the tip of the iceberg is just at the top, and then underneath the water, there's so much, and that's
she's so sweet.
It's true. That's what I feel about you, and not only in private, like in a relational way, but also the way that you choose to use your platform and the way that you choose to express yourself and create. And watching you go through everything you went through the last year has just been so. You used the words perfect, beautiful. So.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
It's great meeting you guys.
Yes. So I will have her links down below. I will see you soon with another video. And that is pretty much it, peeps. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.